Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Ryan Bell of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host is Ethan Young. How are you doing today, Ethan?
I'm doing pretty good, Ryan. Happy that it's Friday. How you doing?
I'm doing great too. Kind of miserable morning here. Had a very weird downpour and it's cold, so not looking forward to that weather that's hitting us, but it's here. So time to get our pumpkins and start carving and get Halloween underway, I guess.
There you go.
Before we kick off our conversation here, I do want to just remind our listeners that we will be playing our challenge words game. So have your ears open for any words that kind of sound like they don't fit into the conversation, and then we will go over those at the end of the episode. Anything I'm forgetting, Ethan, or are we ready to dive in?
I think we're ready to get going and introduce our guest.
Joining us today is Jason Kramer, founder and CEO of Cultivize, a consulting firm specializing in lead nurturing and CRM implementation. With over 20 years of experience, Jason has worked with global and local brands to help bridge the gap between marketing and sales. He's here to share his insights on optimizing the sales process and how to identify poor performing marketing campaigns. Jason, welcome to Construction Disruption. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Personally, I get kind of excited about CRMs and the capabilities with those. So let's dive right in. For those, who aren't familiar with you, could you start us off by telling us a little bit about kind of your background and how you've ended up where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So the abridged version, because it is a Friday, even though this might air not on a Friday, but we're in sort of relaxed mode here, casual conversation. So I got started as doing in marketing. So marketing was my background, graphic design specifically. Worked for agencies in Manhattan, different brands, global brands, local companies you never heard of, and doing that for a little while. And then I saw my first sort of opportunity light bulb idea, which was back in the early 2000s, specifically 2002 is when I started my first company. There were agencies, right, of course, but then there were freelancers, and there really was no middle ground, Not sure if the listeners today and you guys probably know of like Upwork and Fiverr and all these different platforms where you could go and get logo design and web design and all these things, from people all around the world. It didn't really exist back in like 2002 as accessibly. And so I built a virtual agency. I took all the resources I had of the people I met in my agency years, and I had my copywriters, my video people, my web people, and all these people at my disposal as I needed them. And for 16 years, we built a lot of hundreds of websites, branding, all these great things. And at the end of that, I did a lot of email marketing for my clients. And I started realizing, which we'll talk about today, that a lot of companies are spending money to generate leads, right? Whether it be Google ads, whether it be going to home shows, whether it be direct mail, whatever they're doing, they're driving their trucks around, right? And that's a moving billboard. That's advertising. What they're not doing as successfully is managing all those leads, right? And so that was the inspiration for Cultivize is, what if we built a business to help nurture leads and help salespeople and organizations do a better job at making sure nothing falls through the cracks, but also connecting all of their marketing efforts to their sales efforts so they could actually figure out which marketing channels are actually working and which ones need to be fixed.
So what are some of the key challenges that companies face when they try to align, their sales and marketing efforts, and how does Cultivize help solve that for them?
It's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of organizations, it's seemingly that they have the lights on, but it's kind of like in their dark room, and only if they had a really bright chandelier would they actually be able to see kind of what's going on. And so the problems they're having is that they're having inconsistent processes, right? So, for example, people are calling them and they're like, hey, Jason, we're interested in a new roof or, building out this new project. And if the person's ready to go, that's relatively easy for them to manage because they send a proposal, they can close it pretty quickly. But what if the person says, we're just thinking about it or shopping around, or we might want to do this project next year? That's where things start kind of getting a little bit messy. And so the big problem is that they don't have any system to follow up with those. And the other issue is that they're not nurturing. And so you and I, well, three of us know that people need to be informed to make a positive decision. And so, you're going to buy a car, whatever purchase you're going to make, you're going to do your research, right? And a lot of that requires having access to information. And I think specifically in the construction and home service industry, you could go on Google and you could try to find things, but it's not as relevant as maybe a consumer product. And so businesses have to educate the consumer about different things. So for example, really quick story, we have a pool construction company we work with. And so somebody that might not buy that $50,000 pool this year, maybe they wait until next season. So we have a sequence of emails that educates the buyer. Here's things you need to know about buying a pool. Here's things about, the benefits from a health perspective of why a pool is good. Or another email might be, here's the reasons why it's a good investment for your home value. It's an expense, but when you go to sell your home, it's going to be worth more money. And so all these emails are designed to make them feel warm and fuzzy and to make them understand that, okay, the decision I'm making is a big one, but I feel comfortable this is the right company that's going to help guide me and do good by me to make that purchase. Those are the most fundamental things. And the third piece is on the marketing side. A lot of companies, Ethan and Ryan, we're seeing they're spending $50,000, $100,000, whatever the number is on marketing. And they only rely on the marketing agency to say, oh, this is how many leads we generated for Facebook or from Google Ads. And you're like, oh, that's great. Keep going. Here's another $5,000 a month to keep doing that. But most companies don't know if those are good leads or not.
Yeah.
So just because the leads are coming in, they don't have any systems and metrics to track the quality. And so that's something we could help fix, to be able to correlate the sales activity to the marketing activity, to be able to go back to the owners and to the marketing team to say, hey, yeah, you generated 75 leads last month from Facebook, but 50% of those didn't close. We didn't even get in touch with them because they were just garbage leads, right? And so that's really helpful because you're going to ultimately save money on your marketing if you know what marketing is working and what's not.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, we certainly experience longer lead times with metal roofing, and the nurturing process is so important to stay. People don't land on our website and buy a metal roof that day. So
they don't. No, you don't. You don't say.
It'd be nice.
Don't say. Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, it'd be weird. Probably that'd be a weird way to buy a new expensive metal roof. But so let's talk about the lead nurturing a little bit. That can be a complex process. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see? And do you have any tips or advice on how to avoid them?
It's like a lot of things in life. You sort of set it and you forget it, I think, is the most common issue. So what I mean by that is you might have a system that's capable to send out, and let's talk about lead nurturing for those that aren't familiar. Lead nurturing is not only just sending a sequence of emails over a cadence, over a specific point of time, every 2 weeks, every month, et cetera, but it could also be things that you're doing on social media to nurture that person. So if you're in B2B, like if you guys are selling metal roofs to other companies, right, and organizations, it might be interacting with that company or that person on LinkedIn, right? It might be phone calls. It might be text messages. It might be direct mail. So nurturing isn't just one form of communication. I think that's important to communicate. Depending upon your industry, there could be multiple forms of communication. But I think the biggest misstep is that you set something up and you just be like, oh, it's good. It's running. We're all set, right? And you never go back to evaluate how effective is it? Is it actually getting people to actually make a decision quicker? Are people opening our emails? Are they engaging in our content? Are they responding to our text messages, to our phone calls, to our LinkedIn messages? That's really important. And then the other piece too is some companies don't have a sophisticated enough system to let you know when somebody's actually engaging. So you might know who's opening an email or clicking, but a lot of people might actually not do anything with that email for a few weeks or months. You need a CRM and a system that's going to say, hey, Ryan, hey, Ethan, Jason just came back to the website and this is what he was looking at. You might want to call Jason, right? Because that, as we're all salespeople, you want to talk to people when they're showing interest and signs that they might be ready to buy. And if you don't have a system alerting you to that, because I will tell you, personal experiences happen for many of our clients, even for our own company, because we do this for ourselves. I'll see somebody's taken action. I've seen situations where we've sent somebody like 40 some odd emails. They don't open any of them. And then boom, they open up an email, they go to our website. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then if I call them within like a 48-hour period, they know who I am. I'm top of mind. I don't be like, hey, I saw we've been sending you emails for 2 years and you haven't been opening them and you just open one. Thank you. It's more like, hey, we haven't spoken in a while, right? And it's like, oh, what interesting timing that Jason's calling me. But it doesn't always click for them, you know? But the point is that I've closed so many clients because of that data and that ability to know that they're engaged because they're ready to make a decision. So I think it's really important and a missed opportunity that a lot of companies don't take advantage of.
What do you think the percentage is of business owners or sales and marketers out there that aren't aware that notification of engagement is an option in their CRM? Maybe they have a CRM that doesn't offer that, but they maybe completely don't have an idea that that's.
It's like in my estimation, that this is not a study or anything like that, but just from doing this for over a decade, it's like over 90%.
Wow.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like I know how to change the oil in my car and I do other things, right? But it's not everything I know about the car because I don't need to know, right? So it's like if you don't need to know something and you're not aware of it, then yeah, it's something that just goes under the radar.
I feel like that has to feel like a superpower, just knowing that someone's gonna,
right.
Strike when the iron's hot. Basically, I feel like once you get used to that, I feel like it'd be hard to go back.
Yeah, I think that to answer your question, Ryan, I think that the term that most businesses but some of the businesses we talk to, they have heard the concept of lead scoring. They may not really fully know what it is, but they got a good idea of like, okay, it's something that's going to help me like rank sort of like the quality of my leads and tell me who are the hot leads and who are the kind of cold leads. So that they get, and that's definitely has something to do with what we're talking about. So I wouldn't say that it's fully like they're completely unaware, but they don't really fully understand, I think, what it actually means to be able to have that as a tool for their team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very rudimentary understanding of what it is: hot, cold, medium. So you focus on done for you custom CRM implementations. Can you explain kind of what sets that approach apart from, just a standard CRM, signing up for something and trying to implement it yourself in your business?
Yeah. Well, you said something interesting. I loved at the beginning of the call. You're like, I think you said like, I love CRMs or, whatever, something like that. And I don't think anybody really loves CRMs, right? It's like you like them and they're a good tool, but I thought that was kind of like, cute, whatever. But yeah, so the done for you is that we know, actually, there was a great study Harvard Business Review did years back, which I still actually use that article in kind of our communication. Over 70% of businesses will fail at implementing their own CRM. Now, you may say, Jason, why is that? It's a high number. And there's two main reasons. One is they're ideally, or not ideally, let me say that they're picking the wrong CRM first, right? They're picking the shiny object. Oh, my other friend who is an owner of this roofing company, this construction company has HubSpot. They love HubSpot. HubSpot's amazing. They think by buying HubSpot, it's going to equally be good for them too. But all these platforms, not that they're not capable, they require a lot of work. They don't come out of the box ready to go and magically they're going to do everything you want them to do. You have to know how to use the tools, you know how to create it. You guys are marketers, you have to have good content. You also have the good team, right, that's going to use the tool. So just because you have any CRM, if there's no adoption of it and no one's using it on a consistent basis, it's not going to work. And so all of that said, we do all of the heavy lifting and even the light lifting for our clients. So when a client comes to us, we're going to help devise a strategy on their business processes, their sales processes, how they go about doing their marketing. We're going to come up with a roadmap, and that usually takes just a couple of weeks. This isn't months and months worth of process for us, which we've done it so many times. But we're going to say, okay, here's how we're going to do what we call a phase one implementation. The thing about CRM is it's a living and breathing thing. You always have to kind of be tinkering it. And that's another, I think, missed piece that a lot of people don't realize. I think we were talking before about a lot of companies have antiquated technology that's 25 years old. And it's really not, it's almost like a disservice. And, and they're using it out of sort of repetition and behavior. And so when we come in, we'll build this strategy and then we do all the implementation. We'll connect it to their website forms. We'll clean all their data that they have and make sure that we're bringing in good quality data and segmenting that data. Who are your industrial or commercial clients versus your residential clients? Who are the repeat business? Who is the new business, et cetera? We'll build all these workflows we talked about. We can help write all the content for the email sequences. We literally do it all, Ryan. And then we'll actually train the team, right, on how to actually use the system. But the big piece that is sort of like I don't want to say the secret sauce, because we're certainly not the only ones doing it, but I think there's not a lot that do it. We stay on board. And what I mean by that is we're going to work with the marketing team, the sales team, the owners every other week, a minimum every month for as long as they're a client, to coach them, to train them, to strategize with them, and to make sure they're getting the most out of that platform. And that's something that we've seen a huge uplift in success, because now it's like they have an accountability partner outside of their team that's keeping eyes on things for them to make sure that the system is actually doing what it's designed to do. And that's I would say the biggest value add we provide is making sure that their investment is actually bringing some type of return for them.
Do you have a favorite CRM platform that you like to use to implement?
We have a couple. And there's literally thousands out there,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
so, and the reason that we like a couple, which I'll mention here in a second, is because I'm a big believer that you can't be an expert in everything. And if we were an expert in every single CRM, we'd probably not be doing our job very well, because every system is pretty different in terms of its nuances. But the ones we like the most in terms of and you talked about this a little bit earlier, the user experience is really important. So for me, the things this is how we pick these two that I'll mention, actually three. User experience, right? It's easy to adopt, to get the team to use it, mobile friendly, all these things. The other second thing is that you get a lot for your value, right? So you look at platforms like a Salesforce, which could be over $100,000, very sophisticated, very capable, very expensive. Not every company really needs that unless you're like an enterprise level organization. So you kind of have to look at the value you're getting. And then the other piece is support. There's so many of these companies don't really have good support. They're just like, watch this video, or like email us, or like our support is overseas and, the people are difficult to get in touch with or to speak with. And so you want to make sure you're working with a company that has really good support, because things will break, things will happen that you need answers for. And if you don't have that access to support, it's going to make your life very difficult. So the couple we like, HubSpot, which everybody's heard of, very reliable, very robust platform. Another one we like, it used to be called Sharp Spring. So Sharp like the Sharpie pen and Spring like a springboard. It actually got bought by Constant Contact about 3 years ago. So it's now called Constant Contact Lead Gen CRM. Very capable tool, very comparable to HubSpot. Costs less than HubSpot, but can do everything that HubSpot can do. So that's why we really like that platform. It's kind of like a secret horse in the race. Not a lot of people have heard about that one. And then the other one we like, when companies don't really fully need a CRM, but they need the nurturing piece because they already have a CRM, we like a product called VBout, which is the letter V and then BOUT. It's a really awesome email marketing platform and a social engagement platform too, which is a nice kind of component to add in there.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing those. I have
Sure.
I've heard of Sharp Spring before, but I was not aware that Constant Contact had purchased them.
They did.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to check those out. And, I think it's funny you mentioned, I said I love CRMs. Maybe that was the wrong way to say it. I think I love the idea of the potential of what CRMs can do. Maybe that would have been a better way to state that.
Listen, I must like it too if I build my whole business around them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of digital transformation happening right now across all sorts of industries. How do you think the construction industry specifically can benefit from, integrating all this customer data that we have available into marketing campaigns, especially when we talk about or think about a personalized experience that you can give a lead?
So I'll go back to the client that we have that does the pool construction, right? So they're one of the largest in the geographic areas they are in. They spend a lot of money, they spend six figures doing marketing. And But all these things we're talking about, they didn't have in place before we started working with them. So despite everything they're doing, they were actually writing, I don't have one on my desk, but if I did, I'd hold it up. They were writing everything down on manila folders. That was their system. And they just would have stacks of manila folders on their counters, which is kind of crazy, right? I mean, in the 21st century, like that's your system, right? And so for them, using data we're actually working on this right now for them. So when you reach out to this company, they sell above ground pools, they sell in-ground pools, and they have this kind of cool term called stealth pools, which are like semi in-ground, but the way they kind of put them into the landscape, it looks like they're in-ground, but they're not. So it's kind of like a cool, like new product they have. But then they also have saunas, they have spas, right? They have all these different things. Now, somebody reaching out to them, interested in a pool, there's no reason to send them any information about your spas at all, because that's not what they're interested in, and vice versa. They also have different financing partners. So if you're coming in for an above ground pool, that's a different financing partner than your in-ground pools. And so we're using all the information in the CRM so that when we send out these nurturing emails, we're giving accurate information about the product they're interested in, right? Versus just like a generic message being like, hey, we're a great pool company. This is why you should work with us. And so that's just one example. Another example would be knowing, so we work with a roofing company. They deal with commercial roofs. So they do metal, flat roofs, all these different things in the commercial space. And then they also do residential. And so the communication is very different. Their sales process is very different. And so we utilize something as simple as identifying, is it a commercial prospect or is it a residential prospect? We're about to start working with a company that does roll-off dumpsters for both residential and construction. And so the same thing there, it's two different audiences. And so a lot of companies are not even using just very basic segmentation in those examples. They're just sending the same message to everybody.
Can you explain maybe some ways on how you measure the success of a lead nurturing campaign and kind of what KPIs businesses should be focusing on?
Yeah, so I think KPIs are interesting. So for those that don't know, so that's a key performance indicator, right? So in simple terms, like companies might be looking at like, oh, did we make more money this quarter than last quarter? Like that's a KPI, right? But in the world of CRM, I truly believe that you can really get lost in KPIs. Even if you are doing things like looking, and I don't know how many people listening today are even looking at like their Google Analytics, which is like has like hundreds of data points, right? And it can be super overwhelming. But the point being is that the KPIs I look for vary depending upon the business. But some of the things are, where are we getting our leads from? Like that's important, as a business. And so that's the first step. Are they coming from the website? Are they coming from a phone call? Some of the listeners might have like a showroom, right? So like a lot of our, home service-based businesses have showrooms and offices. So like, are they walking in? But the other thing before we sort of get into like measuring where they're coming from, and one thing we didn't talk about, but I think is a really good sort of free advice tip for anybody listening, make sure that the people answering your phone are asking, hey, thanks so much for calling us. How did you find out about us? And not only how did you find out about us, right, which should be asked right away or within a few seconds, but they should have a drop down in whatever system they're using to consistently choose to say, here's the top 10 ways people hear about us. From Facebook, from, our trucks driving around, from a yard sign, from a door hanger, direct mail, radio, TV, whatever they are. Because I will tell you that the companies that are more, conventional and not kind of up with the modern times are not even asking that question. They don't even ask like, oh, how'd you hear about us? And that's like a fundamental piece on a KPI to know where your effort is actually working. Another thing also on the drip campaign is how many people went through that drip sequence completely. Out of the people that went through completely, did any of them sign up, right? Like what percentage of them signed up to kind of see how effective they are? Some systems, like the systems I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Ryan, could actually track and correlate to say this email influenced the purchase, right? So you don't actually even have to like sort of manually figure that out. The system is doing it for you. The other thing that KPI wise, I think it's important that some companies do track is, how many calls is my team making? How many individual emails are they sending out? Like follow up emails. Just basic things to figure out, like what is my team actually doing to produce more business for our company. And now all these things that I'm talking about, we typically would define what KPIs are important to the client and then build a simple dashboard. So everything is just, like on one page where they could go in and just see all these numbers. Most often, I think companies, the thing also, people are like, well, how often do I look at this, right? Is this something daily I'm looking at, weekly? I would say in the home services, we're seeing most of our clients, like the owners, are looking what's happening in this 30-day period compared to the last 30-day period is kind of what the average seems to be. They're not waiting until the end of year to look at this data. They want to see in somewhat real time kind of what's happening, where the trends are going.
So you've talked about email marketing a lot in terms of lead nurturing. What are your thoughts on text messages? It's been a while since I've looked into it, but I remember reading or seeing something that said text message marketing was blowing email out of the water, which email always had, from my understanding, a pretty good rate, or wanted to be kind of the main thing you were using to keep in touch with your customers. What are your thoughts on that? Is that still the case? Is there any truth in that, or?
It goes industry by industry. Text messaging is actually going through like a little bit of a transition. So I don't know if you ever heard of this new thing called DLC registration that's rolling out at the end of the year, right? So basically all the major carriers, cell phone carriers got together and listen, I can't tell you how many like political and non-political spam texts I get in any given day. It's like kind of crazy. So this DLC sort of policy, if you will, that's being put in place is to mitigate that and to kind of like try to get that suppressed. The same way with the whole spamming of emails, right? And why most things in your Gmail, if you use Gmail, end up in a promotional folder, and that was their workaround, right, to get it out of your inbox. The first thing I would say is that if anybody's trying to get into doing text messaging, definitely go and apply to get this DLC registration. It's not something you just automatically can get. There's a whole series of things you have to go through. It's not difficult to get approval to be able to send text messaging out on behalf of your company through a very specific phone number. So it's not like from a personal cell, it's like a dedicated number. That being said, I think text messaging is great. Listen, everybody's got their phone right at their hip or at their desk. And so they're going to see that message. Now, you have to be careful and not certainly abuse it, right? So you have to do it with some level of, humility and sort of decency, when you're doing it. But I think it's an absolutely really good platform. I mean, as far as statistics go, I will say this. I'm a big believer that the right message to the right person is going to get a response. If you're just putting out garbage, you're going to get garbage back. And so if you're not doing things strategically with good purpose and good intention based on the people that have a propensity to know that they need what you're selling, then you're not going to get good results. So there's multiple factors involved.
And that what you just said, that even carries over into the SEO conversation, I think, with not producing garbage content for the sake of trying to rank and that sort of thing. So
people are smart enough to read through all that.
Yeah.
Or not read it.
Or not. Yes, that's true. Is there any advice you would give to any young entrepreneur or innovator looking to disrupt the construction industry?
Well, I mean, just my advice is like, as a homeowner, for over a decade, I think customer service is like a big piece. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to people, whether it be a plumber or a contractor or whoever it is, and I don't get a phone call back, or they say, hey, we're going to stop by. They never stop by, or that, and it's like, what are you even in business for? It drives me crazy. I'm sure you guys have maybe experienced similar experience. So I would say that's the biggest thing. I think that if you're trying to come in is like have really good customer service, treat that customer as if like, they're a family member, one thing I think I live in not a very huge town. There's about 30, 40,000 people in the town I live in. So I'm about an hour north of Manhattan. And I've had specifically more like appliance and plumber type people come into the house. I'm a pretty handy guy, but sometimes things are just above my expertise. But I've had people like spend like an hour in my house, like being like I'll just give you free advice or I'll show you what to do and like you can do it and they don't even charge, you know. And I've actually hired people that later down the road who put in that effort and that time. It's not like, oh yeah, we could come to you, but it's a $195 service call just for us to show up at the door. You know, these are people that like, no, we're just going to come, we'll meet you, we'll see if we could help. If we could help, great. If we can't, no charge, you know. And so now I'm not saying every business can afford to do that. You got a fleet of trucks, you got to pay for, you know, salary, for gas and all these things. But I think things like that go a long way, you know, when you have like, you know, really showing you're trying to help somebody.
You're absolutely right. Now, just to add on to that, kind of as a little experiment, I started a handyman business on the side. It kind of happened organically with some people in our like neighborhood Facebook group asking for help. And then I was like, you know what, I want to see what I can do to generate leads and stuff without any other input, right? I want to put my own website up and kind of that way I'm learning the process. But every single home I've stepped into, I have heard exactly kind of what you just went over there, is that they can't get anyone to call them back. They can't get anyone to show up on time. And I've had to take my website down, and I've been turning down leads for the last month because I just can't keep up with them. And the people whose houses who have become my clients, I go back to their house regularly. And, you know, it's a small set of people that just regularly have me come out because they can't get anyone else to communicate with them, really. Mm-hmm. And so much impact there, I guess, or so much potential if you can just learn to communicate. And
I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And if you could start off with that, I think you're going to be, you know, light years ahead, you know, of some competitors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're spot on because I'm a younger guy. I rent. I don't own my own house, but I had a problem with my washer like probably 6 months ago. And I was surprised how many people just wouldn't answer the phone, or like it was kind of a cryptic thing, or like it's $100 for them to even come over to my house and take a look at it when it didn't seem like a huge issue. I don't know. I think you're dead on with just working on that customer service goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Jason. This has been a great conversation and very insightful. We're thankful for everything you've shared with us and with our audience. We're close to wrapping up what we call the business end of things. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I think that, you know, just, you know, the one thing I'll say is, and if there's an opportunity, just kind of share, I'm an open book. There's lots of resources on the Cultivize site. The best thing people could do that are listening, if they go to afterthelead.com, so it's just like it's spelled afterthelead.com. There's a ton of content we put out every month in our newsletter. You can sign up for free. We don't even ask for your name, just email us and you'll start getting a ton of content, you know, from us that can be additional resources like we're talking about today. There's also, we talked about lead nurturing today, and we actually wrote a playbook that could be applied to almost any CRM. You could download that playbook at that same site, After the Lead. It'll take you through all the step-by-step, show examples of how to build a lead nurturing sequence and campaign and what it takes and how it could help the team. And the last thing, Ryan and Ethan, is that if people want to jump on a call with me, I'm open. I'm ready to go. So there's a link on there to book a call with me, and happy to kind of chat with any of your listeners about challenges they're having and see if we could help them, you know, get over those challenges.
Awesome. We will put those links in the show notes for our listeners. I like that domain, After the Lead. That's good.
After the Lead.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Well, before we close out, there's something fun we like to do to wrap things up here. Session we like to call Rapid Fire. These are 7 questions that some are a little silly, some are kind of serious. All you got to do is give us a quick response. Are you up for the challenge?
Let's go for it.
Awesome. Ethan and I will alternate asking the questions. You want to start us off, Ethan?
Yeah, I can go first. I like this question. What's a business buzzword that you wish would disappear forever?
Ooh, business buzzword? I would say disappear forever. I don't know. There's so many that I could choose from. I would say, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say disappear, but I would say it's a buzzword I think that's overused is ROI. Like people are just, you know, they always want ROI, but they don't really know how to track ROI. And I think it's something they just sort of throw out there without any real intention. They're just like, hey, we want an ROI. We're like, well, we all want that in life and in business, right? But how are we going to do that? And so I think that's a word that, people say sort of without meaning, a lot of, and often.
Good choice. Question number 2. If you were a CRM feature, which one would you be?
Ooh, I think I would have to be probably like lead tracking and lead scoring. I think the idea of sort of spying on people and seeing what they're doing and, and tracking all that seems kind of cool and exciting, So I think I'd have to go with lead tracking or lead scoring.
Good answer. You're the ninja inside the machine.
Yeah. I know all everybody's dark secrets.
All right, next one. I'm not much of a sweets guy, but I did have some good banana pudding the other night. But this is relevant for the question. But especially with this time of year. But what's your favorite Halloween candy?
Really anything chocolate is where I go. But I will say I'm not a huge sweet person. But I always steal my daughter's Sour Patch Kids. Not like the watermelon. Yeah. It's got to be the originals, and they got to be fresh. They can't be old, stale ones that aren't soft. But Sour Patch Kids are pretty damn good.
Yes, they are.
I agree 100%. We just got some. They have gum. Sour Patch Kids gum.
Oh, I've tried that. I didn't like it.
No,
I didn't like it.
No, it's been sitting in our drawer in our junk drawer for a while. No one likes it.
Yeah.
So, if you were trapped in a zombie apocalypse, what one person would you like to have with you?
This is going to kind of sound really weird, but if you ever seen any of what is the name with the movie with Chris The Rock and where they go Jumanji, right? Where they're going and they're just So I'd say The Rock. He seems like he'd be a badass dude to kind of have around and just kind of kick some zombie butt.
I think we've had that answer before.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, we get a lot of Arnold and
Arnold's a good one.
The Rock and
Arnold's a little bit older though. He might be a little slower now. I don't know. Maybe Arnold back in the 80s. Sure. Yeah.
This is an interesting one. If lead nurturing was the name of a band, what genre would they play?
I would have to think probably alternative rock.
I think that's spot on. Yeah.
Question number 6. What do you hope to be remembered for 100 years from now?
Oh, wow. 100 years from now. This is going to kind of sound a little bit kind of sort of cheesy, I guess, but just as a good, good contributor to the family, being a good husband and father, for anybody that knew me through that, but also on the business side, I think just somebody that is always giving and sharing and trying to just, generally help people without really looking for anything in return.
Good answer.
A little sappy, break out the tissues. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Last one. This is always an interesting one. What's a product or service that you've purchased recently that's been life-changing for you?
Product or service that's been life-changing? I don't know how I would define life-changing, but I would say, so it's not really I don't know if I would term it as a product that qualifies, but 4 years ago, I always wanted to buy a boat and I bought a boat. And that's been and that's, we were talking before about summer Fridays, and that's why I have an excuse for my summer Fridays now. So I think buying a boat was definitely a life-changing kind of thing. Yeah.
Boat life is fun.
Boat life is fun. And yeah, we live right near the Hudson in New York. So I can go pretty much anywhere with it. So it's good times.
Yeah. I was blessed to grow up with a boat, and we had a river that ran through our town. So fun culture for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, thank you again for your time. You mentioned some resources earlier. For anybody that wants to get in touch with you specifically, what's the best way to do that? Is it email, connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. But also, I would say After the Lead is the best place. So all my social media is there. So not just LinkedIn. We do a ton of content. Follow us on YouTube, on Twitter, whatever you like. We're pretty much on all the platforms. After the Lead would be the best place to get in touch with me.
Well, before we close out here, we need to recap our challenge words. We were all successful. Jason, your word was
chandelier,
and you worked it in beautifully. Ethan, you had a phrase, kind of. Yours was?
Yeah, mine was banana pudding, which I kind of just put in the preamble to one of the questions there.
Yeah.
But
got it in.
Worked out.
And my word was pumpkin, which I usually wait until the rapid fire questions, but I snuck it in at the beginning.
The
Yeah,
very
that was good.
beginning. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
I might have made that a little too easy for you. I don't know.
Maybe. And actually, I didn't have to try very hard. It just kind of happened naturally. So I was happy. I was happy with my challenge word performance because usually I don't know how to do it. And I don't love playing the challenge words game, but we play it. So congratulations to all. Well, thank you again, Jason. I really appreciate your time and everything you've shared with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ryan. And yeah, Ethan, this was great. Really enjoyed the conversation and hope all of your listeners found it just as exciting.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Construction Disruption with Jason Kramer, founder and CEO of Cultivize. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We are always blessed with great guests. Don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Till the next time we're together, keep on disrupting and challenging those in your world to better ways of doing things. And don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Make them smile and encourage them. Two simple yet powerful things we can all do to change the world. God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.